Good morning and welcome. I'm kind of beginning to understand why someone would live in California. So, I'm sort of understanding it. I'm a little bit worried. So today was supposed to be content day, right? This is this academic stuff. And they managed to give us some beach volleyball out there. I'm afraid that by the end of the morning, you're all going to be turned around and not paying attention to the slides. So it's my job to make you pay attention to the slides. I'm Michael Hayes, the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs, and I'll be the Master of Ceremonies here. I have just a couple of important announcements to start. Somebody left their lights on in a Prius. Sorry, Jim. That's what they said. And the other one is there's a slight change in the schedule that Mariana Ibanez. We're going to put her at a longer presentation in the afternoon to save a little more time in the morning for longer question and answer. So that's just a change of schedule. I do have one really important announcement, and that's to thank Jen Holleran and her band of angels for organizing this. It's been the fun we had yesterday and the content we're going to hear today was all because of Jen and her team. So thank you so much. I've also found out if you give Martha Hallett enough coffee, she'll do anything. I'm going to turn the floor over now to Dean Mohsen Mostafavi.
Good morning. It's really wonderful to be here. Yesterday was an incredible day. For those of you who missed it, and for those of you who were there, really thank you very much for being part of all the activities. There was a lot of content yesterday too, and it was great to see so many of our alumni doing such incredible work in the city, and just to be able to be together and walk around and see the impact that so many of you are having in terms of the transformation of the landscape of Los Angeles is really pretty phenomenal. So really thank you very much. And thanks to all of you who are also here today, who weren't there yesterday. Obviously, it's a big deal for us to be here with you. We feel very strongly that what you do here in California really represents an important, fantastic part of the life of the school, and we very much hope that we will have the opportunity to spend more time with you. We spent a little bit of time with some of the Californians in San Francisco a few months ago, but this is really the very first time that we are doing an event like this, and we hope that you let us know what your feelings are about it, what we can do to improve this kind of event, because we certainly do want to do more of these events. Perhaps I could have the next step. Is the work that way? Yeah. So is it in the left hand or right? Okay.
I'll do it.
Tell me which one. This is a new clip. We didn't have this 5 minutes ago. So. Anyway, I just wanted to say that really, once you get outside of New York and Massachusetts, California really represents a big part of our community. And then, in terms of the community of California, which is 15% of the GSD's graduates, half of you are also then based here in LA. So that's really a big part of what we do in the school. Are you okay with? I can keep talking without slides. I never have any problem talking without slides. So let me just maybe the images will catch up with me. So this is California, and I think we covered that. So next, This is just to remind us that this past year we celebrated the 75th anniversary of the Graduate School of Design. All of you know that the study of design at the GSD goes back a lot longer than 75 years. We actually had architecture and landscape architecture. All these subjects are really from around the turn of the last century. But it was very important that 75 years ago, the then dean of the Graduate School of Design, what became the Graduate School of Design, Joseph Hadnant, and then together with Walter Gropius, they created the idea of the School of Design. 75 years ago, this was a pretty big idea to actually bring all the different disciplines together under one umbrella and to create a framework that could have architecture, landscape architecture, and planning, and then after that, some 51 years ago, urban design as really a series of interrelated design disciplines that could come together under this umbrella of design. And the word design, of course, also has incredible possibilities for us, which I hope we get a chance when we have our more informal conversations to discuss. But we are very proud of the fact that this event happened, and we celebrated the 75th anniversary with an exhibition. And this exhibition was not so much just trying to relive the history of the school, but really what was important about this exhibition for us was to see how over the past 75 years the school had created a whole series of contributions to the built environment, to the world, under the aegis of design more broadly. And in that sense, the whole history of the school became an important part of our contemporary practice. In other words, we didn't see the history as something that was merely in the past, but that this idea of the contributions were seen as something that we have to be inspired by, and we see our own work today, what we are doing on a daily basis, as something that is also constructing the future history, if you like. Therefore, we were very conscious of the fact that the school also has to make contributions. It is more than simply a place of learning and training, but it's also a place of ideas that really transform the future of our society. And I think that commitment, the awareness of that, was an important part of this. The exhibition was called Instigations, and Instigations also became the title of this book that has just been published by Lars Müller, who is a publisher in Zurich, in Switzerland. And this word, Instigations, was very much to try and capture this sense of the school being proactive, instigating projects, and therefore the publication was a documentation of all these projects that the school had developed over the years. And I think if we look at the work of the school today, and perhaps I could have the next slide, the school is also, as I said, committed to being the place of discourse, being the place of ideas that really must be thinking about its impact, its outcome, its effectiveness. And I think part and parcel of what we do is that we have to create an environment that is incredibly engaging, that what we are offering is something that is obviously brings the GSD community broadly together to really think about this question of the role of design and how design can now be seen as part of a professional school, but also as part of a school within the context of the university that can have greater outreach. In order to do that, we've also had to, of course, think about the various circumstances of the place where this work happens, which is very important. That's why the question of the studio environment becomes a critical part of the place of learning. And while we're doing that, of course, we're also moving forward with new ways of learning, but we're also, it's important for us not to forget certain traditions of creativity, for example, like drawing, the way in which students not only work with computers and new modes of production, but actually also with hand drawing and life drawing and making models by hand as well as using the computer. And I think these kinds of combinations of creating a situation in the school that understands the relationship between the circumstances of creativity and the kinds of ideas that those produce become important. Obviously, maybe I can have the next slide, please. Obviously, there needs to be a great deal of discussion, a great deal of conversation within the school that really addresses different kinds of topics. And one of the things that is critical in that is how the context of the studio at the GSD provides a different platform than many other schools. In most other schools, when you study architecture, you're basically studying that particular subject matter. When you study landscape, you're studying that particular subject matter. At the GSD, our option studios, for example, are open to the students from all the other disciplines. So a student can be from landscape architecture on the left, another one maybe from urban design on the other, and really they are together discussing issues of relevance today that cross the boundaries of these different disciplines. The context of that work, the nature of the reviews, the types of studio spaces, all of those become important criteria for the way that the school also will be planning its project of effectiveness over the next few years. It's through the understanding of these kinds of circumstances that then we begin to address key topics that are of relevance. We're going to have the next one, please. This is just showing that in the past couple of years, the school has really renovated all of its what we call trays. For those of you who are not that familiar maybe with the GSD, but I know that everybody is familiar with the space of the GSD, we have gone from the tall desks to really now different kinds of desks that give you a much better sightline of the space, but really also to enable students who are working both with computers a lot and also making models and writing at their desk to create a different kind of environment that is not only for hand drawing and model making, which the high tables were for. And therefore we're thinking about the environment of the studio as we move forward as an important part of how our mission of the future will also be understood. Not only thinking about the subject matter, but as I said, this is the sort of the context within which work takes place. The kind of work that is taking place, we had a discussion the other night with members of our alumni council, and somebody asked, what is the school doing about these disasters that are happening with Hurricane Sandy, and we talked about Katrina and so on. I think what is really important to mention is that the school is now constantly thinking about the kinds of topics that are going to be of relevance to society. And here is the work of a group of our students who are really looking at climate change and the way in which the whole idea of coastal urbanization will become one of the key factors of development when you're thinking about issues of risk and what will be the possibilities for questions of urbanization. We feel very strongly that we have to really come up with new ways of understanding the changing nature of risk, the changing nature of environment, but also really the way in which we as professionals address these kinds of opportunities and challenges. We can't just simply rely on traditional ideas of what urban design is or what planning is. We need different kinds of sensibilities. And a few years ago, when we had, for example, our ecological urbanism exhibition, one of the key aspects of that exhibition was really the whole issue of addressing our built environment also from a non-visual perspective. We spend, as designers, so much time on the emphasis that we place on visuality. But part of working with artists like this project that is featured in this slide, which is really trying to capture the smells of Mexico City, is to say that the city also has other kinds of sensory qualities, olfactory qualities, which are different than the emphasis that we place on visuality, because visuality also has its particular nuances, and as does the idea of, for example, when you think about what the smell of a place is, as opposed to what the place looks like. And the interrelationship between the two becomes very important. This is obviously something that people who are involved in landscape architecture know very much about. Historically, we've understood so much about the traditions of a rose garden, which is as important when you walk into the rose garden, the smell of a place, as well as what the place looks like. And I think in terms of urbanization, this is obviously something that is very, very, very critical. There are other ways of addressing the interface between urbanization and really the topography of cities. People are really looking at alternative forms of methodologies, or the way that we look at, for example, high-rise structures. Maybe we can have the next slide, please, which is really not trying to look at new structures in the city from purely their kind of iconic qualities and character, but really look at the way in which we design structures, resisting in some ways their visuality, looking at questions of their structure, their engineering, other ways that they can be bundled together, the way that their performance works, and so on. Perhaps I could see the next slide. This idea is important for us to mention in the sense that the school is involved with the advancement of the different disciplines. It is really not only therefore about our engagement outside of the academy, it's also the way in which we're dealing with the advancement of disciplines within the academy. And so I think these kinds of studios help us to do both, to really understand disciplinary knowledge, the way that collaboration would help us advance, but really to understand the impact of those projects within the context of specific societies, places, and cities. These are some images from a studio that took place in Chongqing, in China. And Chongqing is very much a sectional city. But it's important that the way that we address urbanization in that city also has very much an architectural quality and condition involved with it. So maybe we could get the next slide. So the exploration of the section as a way of trying to mediate between the interior of our buildings, between the inside of architecture, and really the life of the city is something that we are very aware of. What are the tools, what are the methods that we're using in the school in terms of the way in which we actually are looking for catalysts that will help us imagine better projects, more exciting projects, projects that are different in a way than the norm. So we have to really come up with this idea of significant catalysts. Maybe we could go on. And I think this extends also to the way in which we think about topography, the making of the terrain, and the kinds of models that are made. Maybe we could go on. Next one. As well as really the way in which we work, as I mentioned before, in terms of collaboration. Recently, we've been doing a number of studios with other parts of the university. Here's an example of a studio that we are doing in collaboration with the Harvard Business School, the Kennedy School of Government, our Loeb Fellows. And here you see that the dress code of HBS is also having an impact on the dress code. HBS stands for the Harvard Business School, which is part of the team that we're obviously working with. And the students were working on a part of Mumbai, which is really always addressing this juxtaposition between rich and poor, areas that bring that kind of incredible diversity into amazing proximity. And how do you deal with these parts of the city? So suddenly, instead of a standard studio that has 12 students with one faculty member, we have a team of faculty. We have 42 people who are involved in studios like this. And the whole operation becomes much more militaristic when you have to think about getting 42 people from Cambridge to Mumbai and back, and really understand how you study urban sites from an economic perspective, from a planning perspective, from an architectural perspective, and from the perspective of even the NGOs, where the Lobes, for example, can be incredible mentors. These are mid-career professionals who have played such a significant part of the life of the school, and we will hear from one of them very, very soon. That kind of combination of expertise, of knowledge, is going to be very critical in terms of how a School of Architecture really transforms the whole idea of how you deal with knowledge acquisition and learning in some ways. Recently we've had people also coming to the school who really can address some of these very poignant issues. It's obvious that the landscape of the American city, for example, is radically transformed because of the interrelationship between public and private investment. And private investment is the key factor in terms of the shaping of the American city. Maybe that's not the case in some European cities, but in the case of American cities, this is very critical. So we are very focused on this issue of how do we also empower our students to understand not only design, but the circumstances that make design possible. And that sense, that kind of empowerment is important. Here in the foreground is Gerald Hines, the well-known developer. He has a fellowship residency at the Graduate School of Design, where he comes every year and brings some of the architects that he has worked with and works with our students to basically help them understand how he has made the kind of career that he has, but what has been the relationship between architecture and the kind of development projects that he has been involved with. That kind of closeness for the students to be able to sit in a review, to actually have access to Gerald Hines for 3 days at a time, makes an incredible difference. Recently, we have been really, really blessed to have been the school that really has set up an incredible distinguished visiting professorship program, which will be named, it is called, we've already announced it, the John Portman Visiting Professorship. This will also enable significant practitioners to come to the GSD and do anywhere from a year to 3 years of teaching and research and commitment in the way that John Portman has really made such a significant contribution to the landscape of initially the American city, but now also really cities all over the world, particularly in China. Of course, we're also very happy that Gerald Portman, John Portman's son, is here with us today. And the fact that we actually continue to work with the family very closely. I'm very happy and honored that Jack Portman, Mr. Portman's son, is also a graduate of the GSD and has been really supporting me, supporting the school. So we feel that these kinds of collaborations are going to be important. It's important for the students to understand how a figure like John Portman really transformed our whole understanding of what the whole idea of large-scale interior urbanization means, and to create a landscape of cities which is really about this idea of the city of the interior, if we can call it that, and so many other significant projects that have, as I said, transformed the landscape of cities like Atlanta and many others. Sort of, if you like, a complement very much to this idea of the large-scale interventions, urban interventions, is really encouraging the students to be involved with NGOs, small-scale projects in different parts of the world. Every year the GSD provides 10 fellowships that encourage our students to work with nonprofit organizations. This building that you see is a clinic that was built in Rwanda by a group of our students. They have gone on to also create their own nonprofit architectural design practice that works primarily in Africa, but in other parts of the world as well. And I think this is also a very important component of what we do, that our project also has this very strong social engagement component that is nevertheless a part of this bigger picture of the role of the school. Very quickly, the school has become more and more international. We now have over 60 nationalities represented at the school. The percentage of international students is amongst the largest, if not the largest, at the university. And I think that's been a very exciting thing. Part of it relates to the fact that since 5 years ago, we actually introduced scholarships for international students in the same way that we have scholarships for US students. These are the places where in the year 2012-2013 we actually have our option studios. So you see that when we talk about GSD Global, Australia seems to be one place where we don't do studios very regularly, but maybe that's something that we can remedy soon. But it's really critical for us to be doing projects and for students to be involved. And in that involvement, we want it to be systematic, we want it to be sustained, and something that will be impactful. So maybe we can go on. In order to have that kind of impact, we are now creating a series of studios that actually go on over a number of years. So we don't just go in and out, but we try to have better knowledge and be more involved with the local community. Recently, we have been working with one of the most important planning, landscape, and architectural engineering companies in the world called AECOM. And I'm also very happy that Sean Chow, who is the director of the company, who is responsible for China and the rest of Asia and Australia, and perhaps he will be the one who will get us to Australia, is here with us. But with Sean and AECOM's collaboration and support, we have this 3-year project that will be in 3 Chinese cities. This semester, 12 of our students are doing a project in the city of Xiamen. Next year we will be in Macau, the year after in Shenyang. And when I say we will be, that means our students go to those places. They work with local consultants, experts. They also work with the local politicians, with the planners. We have, for example, a very close relationship now with the chief of planning of the city of Xiamen. That means that that kind of access to a city's operations become really an important part of the learning experience of the students. And of course, this work is also documented, and we learn from that, and we hope that we will be able to present this work to the local community in terms of their own review processes that will actually have a in a way affect the way that the city thinks about its future and planning. So we want to be really focused on things that will matter, and this is how the collaboration with AECOM is actually also helping us frame that conversation. Another place that we are doing studios, as you saw from the example of the project, but also from the locations on the Africa map, is Africa. And this semester we have a wonderful studio in Burkina Faso, and we are working with an architect from Burkina Faso called Francis Kéré. And part of this is, for example, for the students to also do the opposite of what I was showing you before, which is very abstract, very much, issues of parametric design and so on. This is very much about hands-on understanding. How do you work with the local community? What do you do when you have very limited resources? So actually, the students are also learning how to build buildings that are out of brick in the same way that, for example, Francis Kéré has done. The other type of studio, which is different than the 3-year studio, is this idea of a studio that actually stays in a country or in a city for a longer duration. Since 2 years ago, we started the idea of studios abroad. This is something that we've never had, so we started by sending a group of 12 students to Paris to work with Anne Lacaton, the French architect. We create our own school in a way, but we also collaborate with other people so that the students don't feel too isolated and lonely. But it's very important for us to really have the GSD create the educational program. And so we did the studio in Japan last semester with Toyo Ito, and the focus was on Tohoku region, which, as you see, was devastated. And so part of the project was to deal with the rebuilding of the area. And then this semester, we have a group of students who are living in Rotterdam, and they're working with Rem Koolhaas. And this studio is very much focused on issues related to architectural discipline, and they're dealing with topics like the history of the corridor and false ceiling. And it's actually very focused architecturally. It is not trying to be a socially focused studio. So I think this kind of diversity is a critical part of what we do. We don't want to be a school that only does one kind of thing. We have to be the school in the world that really represents the best of that kind of plurality. And I think these kinds of experiences for the students are phenomenal. To be able to see Toyo Ito every week, twice a week, to be able to see Rem Koolhaas. And this is, I think it's a much better way of organizing things than, for example, these architects who are so committed to education just coming to see us occasionally, to actually for us to spend time being with them. The other thing that is, in a way, very exciting in the school is the way in which we have brought the arts. So that we're not thinking only about design broadly, which is very, very important, but really we think about art. This is Philip Glass, who visited the school last year and talked about music and creativity and the relationship between music and architecture. It was an incredible experience. The music that he played was phenomenal. It was mesmerizing. Piper Auditorium was absolutely full, brimming, people sort of sitting all over the balconies and everything. And he really talked, gave a lecture, he played music, he talked to us about what he thought in terms of the relationship between music, sculpture, architecture. And I think this kind of experience of understanding the parallels in creativity with other disciplines has been extremely important. We have also brought other artists to the school. We had also this incredible exhibition that was with many sites, 3 different sites. This is the work of Olafur Eliasson, but we actually worked also with the Chinese artist Ai Weiwei, with the Argentinian artist Thomas Saraceno. The combination of those 3 artists also made it possible for the GSD's impact to be felt within the wider university. This is also a critical part of our mission. It's not just the GSD and the rest of the world. It's something that is happening today which is much, much more important than it has ever been. It's also the role of the GSD and the rest of the university. We have to understand and position ourselves with the university in a way that we haven't done in the past, where we have been seen primarily as a professional school, inward-looking, focusing on the profession, but we also now need to be really aware of what does it mean when we talk about design in the context of a research university, and how can we make ourselves really critical and relevant to the other disciplines, from history to engineering to business to the humanities to medicine. And I think this is something that so many of you are involved with, and I feel that the Academy has not always been as advanced as the work that you're doing in terms of collaboration. So we're really trying to learn from the experience of our alumni, but the experience of the real world, to really see its impact. And I think these kinds of projects are important. A sort of combination of the hands-on and the artistic is really the work that is presented here with the students working together with one of the lobes, Anna Heringer, who created this structure that's made of mud brick that became an important place, a location, a kind of marker of the corner of the GSD on Quincy Street and Cambridge Street, which is really being, it was an important thing for a few months. It really transforms the place, and now we're about to create a new project, for example, for that site. we go on to other things here. So,
in 2010, Harvard's Graduate School.
Yeah, sure. This is the
In 2010, Harvard's Graduate School of Design published Ecological Urbanism, a visionary collection of essays with a focus on the rapidly expanding practice of sustainable design. With new projects frequently emerging, how do you keep up with a subject that is a moving target? The new Ecological Urbanism map provides a solution that captures the spirit of the book and grows organically as the field evolves. Multiple points of entry, including an interactive map and a timeline, reveal new angles on the subject. These dynamic visualizations transform raw data into recognizable patterns, over time and around the world. Now, scholars can publish projects as they develop. Students can stay current and discover new perspectives, and designers have a comprehensive resource for inspiration, one they can take with them wherever they go.
This will take too long to explain. I've already talked for too long, but just it's important to say that in terms of when I say that it's our responsibility to try and find ways in which we can really discuss the impact of the work of the school. We need things through which we actually achieve that task. We cannot just do the work inside the school and have our own reviews and hope that we will wait until our graduates will actually do, through their work, make that impact. It's very important that the school talks about its own research and its own impact. So we were really very fortunate to be able to, and this really came in many ways as part of one of John Irving's instigations, was to help us think about the impact of a book. What can you do that transcends a hard copy publication? We do things in terms of ebooks and so on, but we have made this app to really try and create a situation where a theme or a topic or a sensibility like ecological urbanism can be available as an app that can really communicate the work of the school and hopefully the information, the knowledge that's available in the book in a much more dynamic way that can be updated on a regular basis, can have all of your work in it, because now you're all in a way implicated in this project of ecological urbanism, and we want to be able to include those projects as exemplars so that, for example, this app becomes a dynamic device that you would all use if you're thinking about questions of urbanization and how do you deal with the planning of new kinds of environments or the transformation of existing ones. And so the role of technology within this bigger project becomes absolutely critical. Finally, I think it's clear that exhibitions of the work of the students, is something that is the key driver of our work. We have talked about two kinds of approaches. One is really about the question of design and the idea of design excellence, the fact that we do not want to be shy about the work of the GSD being really the best there is in terms of design, and the work of our alumni in that sense. So the question of design excellence is at the forefront of what we are interested about. At the same time, we are interested, as I said, in this concept of impact. So we talk about societal engagement, and societal engagement that is through design excellence. Therefore, this relationship, this reciprocity between design excellence and its impact, and its societal impact, I feel is really one of the key concepts that has to really move the work of the school in the coming years. We're very honored and humbled by the support that we receive from you, but also by the support that we receive from a number of people who are very close to the school right now, and we're going to hear from two of them. First, we're going to hear from John Irving, who has graciously agreed to be the chair of the GSD's upcoming campaign. And John, though he didn't go to the GSD, I feel that his mannerism, his wisdom, his support is as if he had spent many years at the GSD. He genuinely understands it, sometimes much better than I do. I think his friendship has been an important part of the school's life in the past few years. And also it was amazing that we saw a demonstration of his commitment to the GSD when he and his sisters set up an endowed professorship in honor of their father, Jack Irving. And this is, of course, also a chair that Charles Waltheim now holds at the school, so we're really grateful and thankful. So John will speak to us. John is also the president of Ocean Capital Investments in Canada, and then John will be followed by Ron Drucker, who is the president of the Drucker Companies in Boston. And Ron has been leading us in terms of a big project, which is really looking at the GSD's campus, and he will explain that, and really the relation between space and idea space and the academic mission of the school. I am very sorry that I have taken too much of your time, and perhaps we will have a chance for a few discussion items, questions, and so on. But without any further delay, please welcome John Irving. Thank you.
Well, good morning. Closer to the mic. There you go. All right. Well, we'll do what we can, assuming everybody can hear me. Great. Well, I want to thank you so much, Moises, and I guess I am playing to type. This is kind of a Harvard Business School outfit. Glad that you're all indulging me this morning. It's really been an exciting weekend. Yesterday was quite fun. I saw a lot of LA that I've never seen, and you can see the impact that the GSD has had on an urban community. I became involved with the GSD in 2006. And I was a member of the Harvard University Committee on Student Excellence and Opportunity. And really that committee visited all of the graduate schools with a view to creating an omnibus report on the relative state of schools from a student excellence perspective. And that was excellence in teaching, excellence in instruction, and excellence in the quality of both the candidates and the work. And I graduated from Harvard College in 1983 and Harvard Business School in 1989. And one of the questions Moises thought I should maybe spend a second on is, why was I interested in being here? Well, I'm from Canada, East Coast, and it snowed there this week. And so the opportunity to be here looking out at the ocean today in the sunny sand really was quite good. Julia's going to help me with driving here. I became interested in the GSD because of its professional programs in architecture and landscape architecture. I'm going to get you to go back one or forward one. One more, and then we'll go back. Thank you. My grandfather's in the center, my father's on the left, and my wife is on the right. They spent their lives building things, both businesses and physical objects. And there you can see them at the opening of the first deep water port in North America in 1970. And for over 40 years now, the largest ships to come to North America have docked in St. John, New Brunswick. You can see the stern in the back. So for them, building things was always important. But it goes a little bit farther than that. We're going to go backwards now. Thank you. This is my grandfather. He developed a forestry business. In order to have a forestry business, you need trees. But my grandfather was rather unusual. You can see a picture of him here, dressed rather formally, as he always was, measuring the diameter of the trunk of a tree. And in 1957, he started planting trees. And in 1957, not a lot of people were planting trees. But he was worried that if you cut down trees and you didn't replace the trees, there wouldn't be trees in the future. And when you plant a tree in eastern Canada, it takes 50 years for it to grow. So the trees he planted, he knew he'd never see reach maturity. So he was thinking not just about trees, but he was thinking about the forest. He was thinking about the human interaction as part of a larger ecosystem. And when you look at it from that perspective, it alters your perspective of time. And the GSD, through its innovative curriculum and its fusion of landscape architecture, and urban planning, understands the necessity to integrate these topics. And also understands the concept of time. Because when you look at cities, these are long-lived creations and they have tremendous impact. And over the years of my involvement with the GSD, I've been captured and inspired by the work of the amazing school that you've all graduated from and are interested in. And the students and the faculty have made an amazing impact on our world. If you go to the next slide, going forward, Bailey Park in New York, East 53rd Street is an outstanding example for me of a fusion of an urban public space on a human scale that provides an environment of privacy while it's surrounded by intense urban activity. This is what creative design can do. And I've always admired this oasis when I go to New York. I think this is one of the coolest things to see. But our next slide, this is the Gardiner Expressway in Toronto, but this is typical of many cities that were underwent urban redevelopment activities in the mid-20th century. And that's how you experience the city, driving through it. And these projects now recognized as having had many negative consequences. They eliminated homes. They eliminated businesses. They separated neighborhoods, and they made pedestrian activities impossible. So for me, for a society to be successful, our built environment, our cities and our landscape needs to be livable. It needs to be human scale. As Moises has already showed you, that with the increasing urbanization of the world, over 70% of the world's population by 2050 will be in cities and towns, we need to learn from our mistakes and we need to get it right. We need to think about our urban environments on a large-scale basis. And design is how we can come to these better outcomes. And if we do this right, our cities, our economies, and our health will be better. But in order to do that, we need to train the best students at the best school with the best faculty. And the GSD is that. One of my roles in the chair of the GSD campaign is to help voice this message of design's value and criticality to the community beyond the immediate design community. You all know it, you live it. But the GSD is part of a larger university, which is not always aware of what you do and its importance, and the world at large. So we have to get the message out. If you go back to, if we go to our next slide, everybody may recognize this. It's from an overhead angle, but this is New York City. That's an easy one to say. Next slide. This is New York City without Central Park. Is it the same place? I think not. It would not be the city it is today. There would be no place for the city, within the city, for people to retreat from the city. And when you think of minds like Frederick Law Olmsted's Need, who thought big, we have to encourage the generations coming along to think big. In 1990, President Eliot oversaw the creation of the nation's first graduate program in landscape architecture, and it was chaired by the Central Park's designer's son, Frederick Law Olmsted Jr. The GSD has been the leader since its very founding. It was the first program in the nation. Next. Here we talked about ecological urbanism. I was pleased to be able to attend it, and when you saw the scale and the forward thinking that was taking place at the school, the raw talent and the passion of the students, the faculty, and the people who made presentations. Here you can see a map from Richard Foreman's book on urban regions, ecology, and planning beyond the city, because it's not just the city, it's its environs. Go to the next slide. You can see urban agriculture, which is a hot topic, and I must say I had to mention it because Nina Marie Lister of Ryerson University in Toronto, I have to put in a plug for Canada every now and then, but she did a great job on describing how you grew food to support a city. So then if you go forward, it was tremendously well attended. It was 2.5 days of passionate discussion, and then it produced a work at the end, the book, which if you go on Google today, has 1.4 million citations. So if you Google ecological earth, big impact. But one of the things that Moises was very strong on was making sure that we captured the energy that came out of that conference, distribute the information through the form of a book, but then we had to do more. So Moises has played the wonderful video, but this is an iPad app. It's available since October 18th. It is real time, it is collaborative, it will evolve, and it is alive. I'd urge you all to download it, it's free, and check it out. Because if we can make it better, this is how the GSD can communicate its message to people who are outside your immediate community. And if we do these things, as we our efforts will amplify each other, and we will achieve in the common domain the recognition of the importance of the benefits of good design compared to in an integrative way. One other thing, though, is that if we go to the next slide, you can see in the top right is the where the GSD is located. It's actually quite in the center of Harvard. It is part of the larger university, And when we think about it, it's not just on Quincy Street. In fact, the School of Architecture, which was Department of Architecture, founded in 1895, was located in Harvard Yard, the bigger yellow circle, in Robinson Hall, until 1972. So the school is part of the university. But this is geographic, so we thought we should look at it another way. We said, what are the interactions? How does a school interact with the university at large? Whether we have the Extreme Urbanism Studio, which was done in combination with the Kennedy School, looking at an undergraduate concentration in architecture, which is quite an innovative concept. The other day, while on my way into the school, I saw students who were discussing their visit to the iLab, which has been set up next to business school down in Alston. So there's a tremendous amount of collaboration, and if you go all the way around the circle, there's been tremendous activity at faculty level, at student level, and amongst the deans. Next. The other thing that's quite interesting is that the school itself is growing to meet the challenge. Everybody's familiar with Gun Hall, but on the top right, your top left, my top right, or reverse, you can see Kirkland and Sumner Street, where 3 houses have been recently purchased, and they're used for the MDiv students and the faculty offices. But these are not just spaces. If we go to the next slide, in these spaces you can see offices, you can see collaboration spaces, you can see meeting rooms, and you can see exhibitions. And when you say, well, that's not quite as big as Gun Hall, but when you think about the fact that GIS, one of the biggest innovations of our time, which we know was created at Harvard, was actually created in a room in the basement of Memorial Hall. So it's not the size of the room, it's the size of the mind. When we go to the next slide, since 1936 though, the school had a different role because the Department of Architecture, the Department of Landscape Architecture were fused into the Graduate School of Design, and then urban planning arrived. And we have had world leaders. And when we think about world leadership, I mean, it's truly great. And you say, well, that's good, we talk about great, but what does great mean? So if we were to go to the next slide, great can be defined in a number of ways. But a simple numeric one, in 14 years of ranking, Design Intelligence is awarded GST 12 out of 14 years #1 rank as graduate school in the nation. Landscape Architect has won #1 rank 8 years. GST students have won the UL Hines competition 3 times, finalists 6 times, by far the most representative of any school. Pictured here, you can see the MoMA PS1 Young Architect Program, which was run by GSD alumni 6 out of the 12 years it's been had. There have been 35 Pritzker Prize winners. 5 were won by alumni, 4 by faculty members, and 5 by Tang visiting professors. That's 14 out of 35. These statistics are phenomenal. This year at the Cooper Hewlett National Design Awards, winners of the architectural and environmental categories were both GSD faculty members, Mark Scogan and Chris Reed. In 13 years, these awards have been given out. GSD alumni and faculty have received 16, 8 of which were in landscape. If we go to the next, one of the things that is important to remember is that the education of GSD students and faculty is very different from the work that's done at Harvard. You may take it for granted, but there are not a lot of places at Harvard where people are building models, which are technical, detailed, and also beautiful. If you go to the next slide, we're using robotics. Here you can see a 3-dimensional ceramic printer in the basement of Gun Hall. And if you'd like to see it live, there's actually a very good YouTube video. But again, not what people typically think is going on at Harvard. Next. The other thing is, in today's world, we talk about collaboration, but the GSD has been doing it for years. You can see students here working on a model together. We go to the next. We can see a very iterative process with physicality, and where we try and solve problems through a design process. And the next one. And then the end result may be beautiful, but it's also manifests the research, the analysis, and the prototypes. This is real work. These are real objects. This is not theory. When you look at the trays, which are absolutely an amazing resource, there's nothing remotely like it at Harvard. If you visit the other schools of design, they're envious of this. But what people may not think about, when you think of the business school, which is very proud of its case study methodology and its section rooms, or the law school, what the GSD does with the trays is every bit as significant as that. And it's impossible to imagine the GSD without this amazing teaching and learning space. This is collaboration on steroids. when you go to the real world, as you all know now, you wind up having to work with other people. In trade space, you can look up and see what people are working down. You can look down and gather inspiration, or you can go next door and get help from someone. Or if you're dealing with a multidisciplinary problem, you're seeing all the activity in the field. The trades were originally designed for 340 students, but recently, Moises, as you'd already mentioned, has done significant work, and the trade capacity has been expanded, because this is a unique thing. You go to the next page. All the work doesn't take place in Cambridge. Here in Burkina Faso, students are working on an urban project. If you go to the next page, they're in China with Scott Cohen. When people talk about being global, about understanding the world around them, you can't do it all in one spot. You have to go where the work takes place. And in many ways, this has set a marker for the rest of Harvard, because Harvard is very keen on understanding collaborative work, very keen on experiential learning, international experiences. And for the university to grow and for the school, this is, I think, in fact, the future. And the GSD is showing tremendous leadership in this area. Go to the next page. It's a current student. And you know, when we think of current students, it's important to talk a little bit about what that means. At this time, the GSD on an average basis has a 20% admission rate, which means that every 100 people who apply, 20 are admitted. That's highly selective. What's even quite more interesting, though, is out the 20 who are admitted, last year's average on an overall basis, 78% said they would come. A tremendously high yield. These are some of the strongest school numbers that the school has had in a long time. And when you look at this in the world of competitive institutions, is really a great sign. One of the things, though, is that 91% of the students receive financial aid, and over $8 million last year was distributed for financial aid. And one of the things that we all take a little bit for granted is the annual fund. But last year, the annual fund generated $900,000, which were used for fellowship money. And what's kind of interesting is the annual fund has grown, but what you may not be aware is that the university as a whole is committed to the GSD to match the money that the alumni puts in the annual fund. So for every dollar that's donated, President Faust has put in $1. And when, in the last couple of years, we've increased the amount of activity in the annual fund. When the dean has gone to President Faust and said, I think we can do better. Will you match us? She said, yes. This is an amazing commitment at a time when people are under extreme budgetary pressure. And when we think about financial aid, tuition, while it may be $40,000 a year, it's costing on average $62,000 a year for someone to be in Cambridge. The average GSD graduate leaves with $65,000 in debt, and the Master of Architecture 1 leaves with $90,000 in debt because it's the longest program. So if we want the GSD to continue to attract the best that there is, we need to make sure that they can afford to come. We need to recruit absolutely the best talent in the world, and then we need to give them the best education. When we go to the next slide, great picture of Moises Milan. One of the things that's been stunning to me is Moises' leadership over the last 5 years. He's passionate, he's committed, and he's visionary. And the school is trying tremendously initiatives on many fronts, and in fact even being here today is an example of that. The faculty has been strengthened, and financial aid has been strengthened. He has been a member of the President's Task Force on the Arts. He's co-chair of the Harvard Common Space Initiative. So the GST is firmly in the center of the university, and I've been privileged and honored to work with him. I'd like to show you the next slide. We were talking about the extreme urbanism in Mumbai. Here you can see President Faust and our own Rahul looking at the project as it was presented in Mumbai. Recently, the Harvard Center for the Initiative for Teaching and Learning, which was given by Gustav and Rita Hauser, awarded $900,000 to the GSD to examine how you teach, how you learn in collaborative environments using new technology. And it's a testament to how the work that the GSD is resonating far beyond Quincy Street. In the closing slide, which is now up, the opportunity to speak with you all today is really quite an honor for me. I know that if my father was here, he'd say, you know, say less and sit down quicker. But he would also say, but what he would say is, what you do really matters. And the time has never been more critical when you look at some of the issues that we're dealing with in urban cores. And to be part of a university that understands that, to be asked to help you all is such a privilege. And I think that we will be very successful in this. But never forget, what you do matters. It makes a difference. When you walk through downtown LA and you look at what's been achieved by GSD graduates, imagine LA without that. Imagine New York without Central Park. It matters, and together we're going to move the ball forward.
So take 3 or 4 minutes, 5 minutes, just to see if there are any thoughts or any reactions to any of the things that are being presented. And don't be shy. I mean, we really want this to be informative. The purpose is just to let you know what's happening in the school, what are we thinking, how are we positioning ourselves in terms of our relationship to the rest of the university. We have great support, and we are sort of thinking and planning things, obviously, in advance. So, any thoughts? Please. There are a couple of, maybe we can get a couple of ideas or comments.
Talking stick, right?
Do you have another mic too, or is that the only mic you have?
No, we have.
There's somebody else also in the back. Maybe they can ask it.
I'm Karen Janowski, MLA 91. I'm wondering if you can expand on computers and how they work within the GSD right now. I feel a bit out of touch when you were showing images of the trays with computers on every desk. Well, are the students buying them? Are they provided? And then with some of the interaction, global interaction, is there a resource that allows some of that? Is there, a big screen room where people can have conferencing and things like that? So
Sure.
just curious to know what sorts of resources.
Great. That's wonderful. Do you want to, maybe we get a couple of questions and then we can answer. There's somebody behind you.
Well, maybe in parallel vein, I'm Lance McCarr, MLA 81, and I teach sustainability at Pitzer College. So I'm wondering if there are any parts of the building program that would involve demonstrations or experimental ideas around sustainability, around the energy water nexus, for example.
Just very quickly on the computers. A lot of students are now doing incredible things with computers. If you come to the school, especially if it gets towards the end of the semester, you'll see that on many desks there are up to 3 screens that are working at the same time. Something where there are people are working on a project. Sometimes you see them making a model, and at the same time they're watching a soap on one of the while they're making the model. They're writing something, and then that's on another screen with their emails and so on. So the way in which people are just mediated constantly is really phenomenal. And so part of the excitement is how one hones all of that engagement. But also we're very interested in people not being always 100% cocooned in that world. That is why it was important to, even if as a sort of symbolic, nominal thing, to show you a slide of somebody actually doing drawings by hand, or this emphasis on live drawing. We have people who are really artists who are working with the students, and I think this combination of things is important. The students do buy their own computers. Most academic institutions found out that trying to supply computers to the students is a crazy idea, because within a year or 18 months, most of these computers are out of date. So what you really want to do is to make sure that you're investing in their real kind of infrastructural ideas, like the networks, the software that you provide, the sort of facilities that are more broadly for research related to the interface between computers and the workshop. This is where our investment should be. But the students should really bring their own computer, and every year it should change, and as new students come, there should be the latest version of the computer that is available. The thing that has happened that's been the most radical is not so much the computers themselves, it's really the interface between hands-on and computation. So previously we had just the workshop, and this is the thing that Ron referred to. Now, in order to make models, we don't just have the workshop, we also have CNC machines and 3D printers, and there's a lot of technology that actually
now needs to also be housed in a different place. So that is also part of the reason why we don't want to lose out on the traditional workshops, if you like, and, but at the same time we now need this other way of working between computers and fabrication. So that becomes an important part of what the school is doing. And of course, in terms of the future, when we have also studios abroad, now one of the research questions is how do we make sure that the students who are in Rotterdam also have access to a law library, and we can make sure that they do research, because that studio, which is looking at the status of the corridor, for example, they can't just do that based on the libraries that are available in the Netherlands or in Rotterdam. So we need to also make sure that people are connected with the school through technology in a way that. Now, in a way, this is parallel to the question that's being asked, as you said, about the MLA program landscape, or more broadly about sustainability. The slide that I showed you about the smell is, in some way, relates to this, in the sense that historically we've been dealing with drawings, with making a drawing of a building or a landscape and saying this is what it looks like. But at the moment, really the emphasis is shifting to some degree, or it's being complemented from this idea of visuality and from an emphasis on structure to an emphasis on thermodynamics and things that are non-visual and have an impact on our body. Therefore, we're dealing with environmental issues that are not clearly visible. We can actually deal with them in terms of software that helps us analyze their consequence, but it's not always also the same as having situations where you can experience these things. So we are investing in software that brings some of that, but actually part of these exhibitions and part of the work that we want to do in terms of future labs is to have spaces that will allow us to do more significant research work that is understanding the performance of things. So in design, this word performativity or performance of things is not just about the functional idea of performance, but it's really about the way in which, like a sort of theatrical scene, buildings or landscapes also have a performative quality. And how do we understand that? How do we examine that? And we need to have spaces and modes of working that will also get us towards a better understanding of the non-visual. We feel that in the current culture, actually artists sometimes are working on some of these things in a way that architects maybe are not. I mean, there's been a lot more emphasis, for example, on environmental issues in art and the impact of art on the body and so on. I think these perceptual, sensory questions are critical, and we've created, in a way, what we call a platform, which is called the sensory media platform, in a way to have courses and spaces that introduce the students and allow the faculty to do research in areas that are really non-visual, but they're to do with any other? I think maybe we could have one last question, and then we can mingle and chat while we're having the break. Please.
Antonina Markov, MR 87.
Can you speak to the mic so that...
Antonina Markov, MR 87. Can you just expand on what you said about collaboration with the undergraduates? And you talked about perhaps engineers and undergraduates in technology, but along the lines of what you were saying, is it also the art undergraduates? And just expand on that.
One of the things that the GSD, I touched on in terms of what's the difference between being a professional school and being really the best professional school on the planet, but also now being the best professional school that's part of a wider university. It means that you have to make sure that not just in terms of the built environment, but in terms of the kind of work that you do, people understand, what does it mean when you talk about design? What does it mean in terms of its relevance for the Kennedy School when they're dealing with issues of governance? What's the relationship between governance and design? What is the relationship between entrepreneurship and design? Can you talk about designing businesses and things like this? So one side of it is that we are really trying to connect with the rest of the university and to make sure that people are more in tune with the contribution that you're all making. If we can do that, it also means that people who are not just the alumni of the GSD also begin to understand and appreciate the value of the contribution that you're all making. I think this is something that we see as an important part of the mission of the school. It's also been very much part of the mission of Drew Faust as the president of the university to say, I don't want the university to continue as these hubs that are totally independent. I want us to work together, and I really want to promote the notion of a one university. Now, of course, the idea of autonomy and hubs has certain benefits. At the same time, the concept of collaboration and people working together, when you have these incredible resources, also has benefits, because if you just create these silos and every time you want something, you have to create it yourself, when there is somebody brilliant just in the building next door and you don't use it, this is crazy. So you have to know that it's only, I don't know, 3 years ago that we started the idea of a common calendar. Harvard University not only was a tough, but it was a series of 10 separate universities, colleges, that run their own calendar and so on. So to actually have the idea of a common calendar, where we could have courses, whereas previously it was really impossible to create that. So the common calendar, all these are part of one university, and the idea of the relationship between graduate education and undergraduate education is also one of the many ways in which we can be in one university or collaborate. So from the beginning, we were very excited that maybe we should have more connection with undergraduate education in a variety of different areas, namely architecture, urban studies, and design. We started with architecture also because Harvard actually had an architecture undergraduate program. The building of the Carpenter Center that most of you know is the only building of Le Corbusier in America, was really supposed to be the bringing together of undergraduate education and the GSD through VES. But this project has not been very successful. It was successful for a while because there was a lot that was going on between the Carpenter Center and VES. Many of you maybe participated in that. So visual and environmental studies. Over the years, the environmental component of VES has more or less dissipated. We had many joint appointments between the Faculty of Arts and Sciences and the GSD, and we now have only one professor who is a professor at the Carpenter Center, who's John Stilwell, who's in the Department of Landscape Architecture. So we felt that we should really create a strong bond with undergraduate education, and to say that there is a version of architecture as a liberal arts, not as a professional degree, that would make sense, because this can be an incredible training for people who are not going to become architects necessarily. Some may be, but actually people will do. So Michael Hayes has been spearheading that particular project and has really managed to do an incredible job together with Alina Payne, who's a professor in the Department of History of Art and Architecture, and it became a collaboration between our school and that particular department to then create the basis for a track, which is now going to become a concentration. And we hope that in due course, quite soon, we will also do something, for example, in urban studies. All of these relate to bigger university missions, which we haven't really discussed, which is the university, our role as part of urbanization, urbanism, our role as part of art and design, our role as part of energy and the environment. These are the ways in which we also connect with the bigger mission, the interests of other faculty and other departments and the university. So this is how we're working with undergraduates. With engineering, we're also very interested in both a longer term engineering design or design engineering. And we're just at the early stages of discussing the formation of a graduate program between Cs, which is the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, and the GSD, which would be something around design and engineering. So these are important moves to begin to think about how do we connect with other parts of the university more specifically. We do it through projects, we do it through programs, we do it through degrees. This is like what's happening. So anyway, thank you very much. And then we're